Hey everyone, Isabel Fox here, and this video I'm bringing you is something of a different kind. Today I'm going to give you some insight into who I am and how I got to where I am today. Usually, my videos are about bringing practical and implementable advice to sex workers. However, I'm going to open up and tell you about my journey from the time I entered the industry at 18 through to now. I'm even going to show you some fun pictures of me from my start in the industry through to where I am right now. So stay till the end to see that. What you'll find though is that there are still very much some lessons to be learned from what I have to share. So here it is. I've been asked for it a number of times now, and I'm always eager to give my listeners what they ask for. This is my story from brothel worker at $155 an hour to $2,000 an hour and Australia's highest charging escort. The story I didn't want to tell. As a result of my time in the industry, I have a burning desire to see a change within the sex industry throughout the entire world. See, I know what it's like to love what you do and be proud of what you do, yet be surrounded by people who tell you you should feel the exact opposite. The change that I want to see isn't about making society or other people change their minds about sex work. It's about changing the thoughts and feelings of sex workers themselves, who are held back by their own internal judgments and self-limiting beliefs. Far too often I see people held back from being all that they can be because they don't truly believe in themselves and their own self-worth. And why would they, when no one taught them how and everyone around them is trying to pull them down? I started in this industry at 18 with very little to my name. I knew no one working in it, and I had zero knowledge outside what I had seen on TV and read in books. All I knew was that I was burning with curiosity and I had to try it. I grew up in Australia with a very big family, very little money, and minimal opportunities at the time. I actually spent most of my childhood frustrated by my circumstances and desperate to get out of them. I was really fortunate I had a supportive and stable home, which would prove to be the backbone of my ability to get to where I am today. Up until now, I have really wanted to focus this channel on bringing practical business and personal advice to other sex workers so that they could navigate the murky waters of the sex industry far more easily and successfully than what I did. Essentially, I wanted to be the mentor to others that I wish I had had almost 7 years ago. What I didn't want was to have this channel be a sound piece for my own personal musings or to just be all about myself. If I wanted that, I would spend my time posting shots every day on Instagram and pursuing a life of Insta fame. I don't do that though, because that isn't what I want, and because I also don't want to waste your time. Posting videos and photos about what I'm doing with my life every day and the supposed glitz and glamour of escort life will not help you to achieve success as an escort. And in case you were doubting it, I want every sex worker on this planet to achieve success. Everyone who earns it, that is. My dream for us all is to have a revolution from within, where sex workers learn to value themselves and use this incredible tool to excel as professionals in what should be a professional industry. However, since I have had quite a number of people ask now, I'm going to share with you how I went from being a brothel worker who got paid $155 an hour to becoming Australia's highest charging advertising escort at the time at $2,000 an hour. Also because I know that it's hard to imagine something is possible when you haven't seen it done before. I know I did. And I hope that hearing my story will help to add validity and authority to the things I am trying to teach you on this channel so that you too may go on to use escorting to change your life as it did mine. Yet more easily and quickly than I was able to change mine, as I wasted a lot of time doing all the wrong things and had to learn by painstaking trial and error everything that I share here. Okay, so it starts when I was 18, broke and hungry for more. Like I said, I grew up with plenty of love and an abundance of siblings, yet not enough money to go around. Now, we weren't on the street, but I vividly remember my mother picking syringes out of our front garden in the morning so that we wouldn't see them when we came outside. and us having iron bars on our windows because we lived in a pretty dodgy area. Growing up, the words of our household were, "We can't afford it." In fact, we said it so much and I heard it so much that it should have been our family mantra. As I got older, this affected me more and more. I saw my friends doing things that I couldn't afford to do, and I also wasn't sexually desirable when everyone started dating. I didn't really have any money to have nice things or make myself look as good as my friends. I also, unfortunately, had really bad teeth, and my parents couldn't afford to get me braces, so that was a huge challenge for me in my teen years. So, bearing all this in mind, desperate for independence and freedom and options, at 18 I entered the industry as a brothel worker, basically as soon as I could. I almost went straight into sex work on my 18th birthday, but I decided against it because at the time I had a boyfriend who wasn't open-minded enough to handle it, and I didn't want to do it behind his back or break up with him, so I waited. The first night I worked, I earned $1,000 in 6 hours, which was more than what I was making at the time in an entire week at my shitty government job. And I felt like a rock star. I was hooked. I remember going home and spreading that $1,000 out on my bed and taking a photo of it. People always ask escorts why they first started working, and there are usually many reasons. Money, lifestyle, independence, feeling desired. For me, it was all those things. Given my childhood background, escorting was the answer to all my frustrations. It gave me control over my own life. I could work my own hours, earn a lot. It filled the void of lack of sexual desirability with men. And yet, above all that, I have always been intensely attracted to doing the things you aren't supposed to do. It's actually quite an annoying personality trait, which, left untempered, can get me into a lot of trouble. At the time, sex work was the ultimate off-limits taboo for a female, which ultimately for me only made it that much more attractive. So naturally, I knew I had to try it. The honeymoon period. From the multitude of sex workers I have spoken with, this honeymoon period is quite similar for most people. The first 12 months really of your life as a sex worker will be fun and exciting. For me, it was a whirlwind of money, excitement, sexual attention, new stuff, meaning for me, shoes and bags, luxe nights out, and new experiences. At first, the double life that you're living is a thrill, and you're too dumb and inexperienced to realize the stupid mistakes you're setting yourself up for in the future, specifically related to being outed. This has been less an issue for me as my partners and some key family members have always known what I do, but many workers during this time act with little regard for discretion, which at the time doesn't bother them until they have their big first outing scare or actually get outed, and they then generally experience a radical shift in attitude about their privacy. Each shift that you do brings something new, so you're in total overload trying to learn everything you need to know about the job. And this happens completely on your own. There's no how-to manual or induction process as a sex worker. I've said this before, sex work is either sink or swim. This is also where you will undoubtedly and unknowingly enter into the confetti money cycle that most workers fall prey to. I've spoken about this in detail before in my other videos relating to money management. Your lifestyle essentially will upgrade to the level of your highest earning night, yet you will have no concept of your actual average income, which, by the way, should be calculated on a monthly basis as a sex worker, as there is much fluctuation and variance in your volume of work from day to day and week to week. A monthly picture really will give you a much better understanding of your finances and will generally follow an average pattern, so I recommend that you do that. What I mean by confetti money is that because a large amount of money is attained at once, it is in some ways so easy to attain, you begin valuing it far less than what you would if you worked a full 40-hour week to earn that same amount. So you start thinking of the things you want to buy with this mentality. All I need is one good night to earn that. I'll just do an extra shift. Or that bag will only cost me 3 clients. All I need to do is see 3 clients. But because sex work is rarely stable like that or predictable, you then go in for a shift and you don't have the night that you want. Or due to burnout, you overcommit physically and emotionally and then you can't go in for that shift at all. Many people fall prey to this, and I know I certainly did. So what happened next, and very quickly, was that I quit my shitty government job, which I had hated from day one, and I spent the next 12 months using escorting to set up my intended future career as a personal trainer. I actually did that relatively successfully, and I continued that PT business over the next few years, aided always though by my escorting money, which was actually a shame because it made me lazy. In hindsight, I wish I had focused more single-mindedly on my business at the time. This was also the same time I had my first relationship as a sex worker, which would turn out to be my first great challenge and valuable lesson in the industry. This was where the honeymoon period ended and the true challenges of the job began to show their faces. To put it quite simply, escorting is commission-only self-employment with no handbook. Anyone who has ever been self-employed will understand what this can be like. However, in most industries, there is at least some information that is accessible to you. Sex work doesn't really have that, and if you're doing it, it's most likely that you actually don't want to go and talk to someone about what you're doing for fear of compromising your privacy. So at this point, I was really starting to suffer from my lack of stable income. It fluctuated with that of the markets. I would have financially good nights and bad nights with no understanding of why I made more money one day and less the next. I have always been driven and ambitious to succeed. In fact, I rarely like doing something if I don't feel like I'm the best at it, a personality trait of mine which has its pros and cons. So I knew early on that I wanted to move forward and make something of myself, but I didn't know how to do that or even where I wanted to go. I didn't even really know what higher levels of escorting existed at the time. I worked long and exhausting shifts, completely burnt myself out, only to then need multiple nights off to recover. We're talking like 12 hours, 16 hours, which would then stress me out because I would spend that time off making no money and probably just spending money to make myself feel good. Fellow workers and management didn't know any better either, and they were suffering from the same things. At which point this crappy lifestyle actually kind of became normal. You start thinking, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is my life now. I was also starting to feel lonely and disconnected from other people in my life outside of sex work. So you kind of get sucked into this sex worker void. I was working night shifts at the time because I thought that that was where the money was. So I had completely opposite hours to my friends and family. And that boyfriend at the time that I had worked night shifts too. So I was sort of locked in this bubble with him where my connections to the outer world became less and less accessible. I was lying to most people in my life to cover my tracks or just distracting myself from them entirely so I didn't have to lie. Distancing myself, sorry. I also started figuring out that I couldn't be so obviously flamboyant about my lifestyle, which was totally unexplainable. So again, even the fun stuff that I had at the beginning, I had to start to suppress or just do it on my own. You can't be constantly going out with your normal friends, spending excessive amounts of money because they're going to wonder how you got that money, or they're just not going to be able to do it as well. So it's not really that fun when you're doing it by yourself and they can't afford it. And lastly, the relationship I was in was totally toxic. My partner ultimately didn't really accept the job that I was doing, yet he wouldn't leave me either. Deep down, I was scared to leave him in fear that no one else would ever accept me with the job I had chosen. And I wasn't really prepared to walk away from the job for all that it gave me. I was also fortunate in that I have always felt very strongly that there isn't anything wrong with sex work, so I never felt guilted into believing my job was dirty or wrong. However, the flip side of that was that I was with the wrong person who didn't agree with that perspective. So I spent much of my time fighting with him to try to change his opinion, which was exhausting and unhealthy. So right around this time, my life wasn't looking so great. I know now, after having spoken with countless other workers, that some semblance of this period of my life is not uncommon. 3 years wasted and the typical hooker cliche. So the first 3 years of my time in the industry were essentially a waste, financially speaking that is. Many workers move transiently in and out of the sex industry, leaving to try something new, attempting to live a normal life, only to run out of money and get sick of actually living a normal life. and then return to repeat the whole process again. The catalyst for leaving and re-entering the industry can be different every time, but it usually falls into one or more of the following: romantic relationships, physical burnout from seeing too many clients at too low of a rate. This is high volume work. Emotional burnout, which generally occurs when you're seeing emotionally taxing clients for less money than they're worth. It is very important to be compensated appropriately for the work you do as a sex worker. The anxiety of leading a double life and all that comes with that. This includes as well the pure loneliness that comes from doing night work, or if you're a private worker, from doing totally solo work. And the fear of getting outed, or almost getting outed, or actually getting outed. My personal catalysts were always a combination of the first three, being either romantic relationships, in fact that was the most common one, physical burnout, and emotional burnout. In that 3-year period, I started and ended a PT business. I pursued multiple career paths, had 3 relationships of varying volatility, and I saved almost $0 while entering and exiting the industry time and time again. Along the way, I tried different business models and areas of sex work, from agency work and different agencies to booking agents, private work, sugar daddies, which in my opinion is just another form of sex work with a less scandalous title, Backpage, Cracker, which are certain advertising sites that sex workers use that aren't available anymore, but at the time was very high volume, low rate style work. I began touring as well, which means I started traveling around Australia doing sex work. And I did all this at all different levels of the market, meaning I trialed different rates and different sorts of client bases. No matter what I did though, I had the same issues each time, which were all related to the fact that I had no true understanding of how to increase my rates, how to build a regular client base, how to attract high-end customers, how to manage my money, where to learn practical business knowledge that was applicable to my industry, or how to manage my personal life. I was basically just limping along in this state, bouncing around, not really achieving much at all. I would be giving an incomplete picture of my journey if I didn't share here how fortunate I was to have the support of an incredible mentor and family member of mine along the way, literally from day one. This person saved me from myself many times and encouraged me to never give up on what I wanted to do, and always encouraged me to aim for more. Without them, I surely would have quit the industry and pursued a much different life. They were the first person to ever suggest I aim to escort at the highest possible level, back when my mind couldn't even expand beyond brothel work. Although it was actually a very special client of mine I met at the brothel I worked at, who first ever told me I should have my own website and be doing this professionally. It's funny how such small things can leave such a huge impression on you. Even though this mentor had told me to consider that from the start, it took this really special client of mine validating that I was good enough to do that, to really get me to consider that as a possibility, to get me to believe that I might actually be good enough to escort professionally. Because even though I knew I wanted to, I continued to believe that I wasn't really good enough to do that. To this day, I'm very thankful to that client, and we have had a very special relationship for many years. It was also my mentor who taught me to believe in possibilities you couldn't see. He was the one who taught me that I had to learn to dream beyond my current circumstances if I ever wanted to move forward. And more later on how vitally important it is to find a mentor who supports your vision and guides you to find the right path. The catalyst that finally led to progression. Relationships have forever been a source of great change for me. My parents growing up had an incredible bond and partnership, and I was always deeply driven to create the same thing for myself. When I was 21, I met who I thought was the love of my life, and I was really struck for the first time with the fear of the reality that I probably didn't want to escort forever. I really hadn't considered that before this time, and that one day I would need to step out of the industry. Again, I had chosen a partner who didn't really embody the values I did, which is why I speak so passionately now to the people I work with about the importance of compatible values in a relationship. He was quite clear from the start that me being an escort wasn't going to work for him for long. Because of how I grew up, I had a burning desire to create great wealth and independence for myself at all times. I have always gone where the money is, and I have never wanted to rely on anyone else for that money. I've always thought that if you really want to have control and independence over something, you need to create it for yourself. So just marrying someone who has had money has never really appealed to me. In fact, because of the role lack of money played in my life growing up, I never wanted money to be a determining factor for the relationships I created. The surest way around this always seemed clear to me: make money for yourself and then choose the exact life that you want. So I finally took action. I was motivated more than ever in knowing that I had limited time in the industry. I was terrified by the thought of leaving with nothing to show for it. And I was also ashamed that I had escorted for a number of years now, yet had nothing to show for it. I was frustrated that I hadn't done more with what I knew had so much potential. I knew I had to conquer it, become the best I could be, and crack the code to success as an escort before I eventually left. Relentless self-improvement and the laws of attraction. Earlier, I said that it is vitally important to find the right mentor to help you achieve what you want in your life, and to do so more quickly than what you would do if you were left to do it alone. There was no such thing as an escort mentor that I knew of back when I was trying to figure this all out. But I believed that escorting was just another business where you trade service for payment, so that's where I started. I did all I could do to learn about business and selling. Thankfully, I came from a family of salespeople. My father was very talented at it, and I always liked selling. I consumed any material I could find on business because I felt that anything related to business I could relate to escorting. I also did a lot of education here on men. I read books on what men found attractive, why men had affairs, and how to get people to like you. The book on why men have affairs was particularly helpful, and I actually ended up niching in this area, as I could see it was an area I could truly add value in. I even read books that were intended for men, like The Game, a book which is about how men get women to sleep with them, just so I could understand better the entire picture of male-female attraction. There's a book written for women on the same subject by a girl who was coached by the same people in The Game. I read that too, and I extracted what I thought was useful. I did a lot of work on my physical appearance as well. I was training every day, dressing better, grooming properly. I got a proper personal trainer. I would be lying to say that physical appearance isn't important as an escort. It's exceptionally important, and the higher up you want to go, the more important it becomes. Clients who spend top dollar expect perfection. They want to experience what they feel like they could never truly get in the real world. I invested a lot of money during this time on how I looked, how I felt, and personal education. I went to seminars, paid for coaches, and I really tried to leave no stone unturned. Along the way, the laws of attraction, or God, or Allah, or Buddha, whatever it is that you believed in, kicked into play, and my next great mentor entered my life. He was a successful business owner who coached me in selling, self-esteem, goal setting, money management, and business. With the exception of my mother, I've always been drawn to male role models and coaches, and just in general male energy. I've always loved men and all that they embody, and as a result, I've had mostly very positive experiences with men. This attitude helped me greatly as an escort. I have always expected the best from my clients, and mostly I've been rewarded by the best possible treatment from them. Even my toxic relationships have come from a place of a man doing his best to give me love and make a relationship with me work. Risk and reward. At this point, I was entirely self-managed as a private escort, which meant I now had my own website, I set my own rates, I worked my own hours, and I was managing my own clientele. I was slowly and surely, though with much error along the way, learning and implementing much about business, which allowed me to increase my rates, have control over booking clients in when I wanted to see them, and build a regular client base of good quality customers. What I really learnt was that great progress usually came with great risk. It wasn't easy to go out and try new things. Every time I put my rates up or made it mandatory that my clients paid deposits, my peers within the industry told me it wouldn't work. My friends even laughed at me or went on to explain why what I was doing wouldn't work. I even had an agent at one point who was supposed to try to get me to earn more, who told me not to raise my rates by just $100 because nobody would want to book me. If you're going to do something against the grain, I suggest you just stay quiet and do it without talking to anyone about it but your mentor, who should be carefully selected and outside of conventional thinking. When I eventually put my rates up to their highest point, I had a slew of reviews on the review website for Escort's Punter Planet, making fun of me and saying how nobody would book me, which was wrong, and they did. Growth requires much discomfort. What was also taking place was a complete transformation of self, which ultimately led to the end of the relationship with the supposed love of my life, who didn't really accept or support that I was an escort. Once again, I had agreed to give up my line of work to suit someone else and conform to the values of others rather than living on my own. Finally, and thankfully though, I overcame that limiting belief and I vowed never to stop working for anyone or anything before I was ready. It really broke my heart and actually shattered my world at the time to walk away from that relationship, mostly because I finally realized how wrong I had been about the partner I had chosen and how much I was continually holding myself back by allowing my fear to shape my choices. Australia's highest charging escort. As that relationship ended, soon afterwards, I increased my hourly rate from the already high $1,500 an hour to $2,000 an hour, which made me at the time the highest charging advertising escort in Australia. At 18, I got paid a base rate of $155 an hour, $255 if I managed to get the client to pay for extras. Now I was 22 and I was charging 12 times my original rate. It really was a great accomplishment. However, what was more life-changing than that was the change in myself along the way. Discovering a purpose. Escorting can be an incredible vehicle that allows you to get more out of your life than you could have ever possibly imagined. But you have to be self-aware, and you have to proactively take steps to help you do that. Otherwise, you can end up like many others who pursue the career for years and end up having nothing to show for it, just as I did for the first 3 years of my career. Escorting allowed me the money, freedom, and independence to pursue different paths that eventually led me to where I am now. I have now been able to step out of escorting personally and create income as an advisor and mentor to other escorts who are striving to achieve the same things for their lives more quickly and successfully. Yet it all came at a cost, and anything worth having is difficult to attain. Unfulfilled potential is everywhere. So often, people come to me and ask what it takes to be a successful escort. They tell me how badly they want to succeed, yet they don't really live that through their actions, and it literally boils my blood to see it. The lack of focus, the distraction, the excuses and procrastination. If you want to be better than you are and achieve more than you have, then very simply, you need to get your shit together. Stop partying every weekend, staying up all night and doing drugs. Stop doing drugs with your clients. Take responsibility for yourself and your life. It's no one else's fault that you're where you're at right now. Just as it was no one's fault that I wasted the first 3 years of my time in the industry accomplishing nothing. It was me who chose bad relationship after bad relationship. You are not a victim, so stop acting like one. Take care of yourself and how you look. Eat better, work out, take care of your body. If you don't want to prioritize your appearance, then choose a different industry. Show up on time. Escorts are notorious for being late and flaky. Be 5 minutes early, and if you commit to a client, show up. Don't reschedule at the last minute because you stayed out all night the night before. Coincidentally, these are the same people who spend their time complaining about time-wasted clients. Invest in personal growth and business development. Your money is better spent on education than it is on another designer bag, because down the track you'll be able to afford so many designer bags. Go the extra mile for every client every fucking time. If he wants an outfit, go out and buy it. If he says he wants to shower together, let your hair get wet because you can dry it later. Your client is paying for a valuable experience. If you give it to him, he will come back time and time again. Be selfish. Put your dreams and your goals above everything else because no one else will. Be honest with yourself even when it hurts. It was really hard for me to admit to myself that I wasn't moving forward because I was actually afraid of being alone, and that I kept staying in these crappy relationships because what I actually had was low self-esteem. But until I did that, I was operating with clipped wings. At first, the truth will hurt, but it won't crush you, and what will happen afterwards will be worth the momentary pain. Reject anyone who tells you that you're wrong for doing what you do. Dirty, immoral, greedy, lazy, marriage wrecker, I've heard them all. Anyone who doesn't support you doesn't deserve a place in your life, so be ruthless. If you want to reap the benefits of a successful escort career, for which there are many benefits, you have to earn it. No one is going to give it to you on a silver platter. My story is repeatable. My progression from brothel worker to top high-class escort is not exactly unique. There are many people who start from the bottom and work their way up in all fields of work from all walks of life. The underlying consistent factor is a burning desire to improve or to achieve something, and relentless hard work. The life of an escort is not easy. People will judge you. Your personal life will be harder. You will not be able to be open with the people you love, not without difficulty, and you will be lonely at first. But the upside is the incredible door to options that can be opened for you if you apply yourself in the right way. I work with girls who are putting themselves through high levels of education to attain difficult degrees which are not cheap. Girls who are setting themselves up with future businesses. People who support their entire families while maintaining a high-quality lifestyle. People creating future investments for themselves so that they can step out of work entirely. And then others like myself, who end up finding their place in the world inside the industry itself. Escorting truly did change my life. I loved being a sex worker. My career was nothing short of incredible and soulfully enriching. But I could have chosen an easier path, or I could have done what most people do and work for years with nothing to show for it because I didn't apply myself. If you want to change your life, you can. Earn it. Work for it. Now I'm going to take you on a walk down memory lane. On the left, I'm just 18, or I'm just about to be 18. Truthfully, I actually began thinking about escorting well before I turned 18. And on the right here, I've already started working at this time, and I'm just a few months into my time at a brothel. This is me in my 3-year earning money but going nowhere period. I'm probably like 19 or 20 in these photos. I'm smiling in them because that's what you're supposed to do, but truthfully, I was really unhappy, exhausted, and lost in this part of my life. No doubt I was in some stupid relationship and spending my money on frivolous things, but I did start to invest more in my appearance here. And I'm a personal trainer and training properly now, so that was of value to my career. Fast forward to me at 22, this was when I was at the top of my career. The photo on the right is from the last photo shoot I did as an escort, and also when I put my rates up to $2,000 an hour. And we come to me today. The photo on the left is me out not so long ago for a dinner with my mentees, the professional escorts I work with. I don't have photos up of them for sake of privacy, obviously. And the right is a photo I snapped just a few days ago before heading to a consult with a new escort client of mine. So, for those who have been wanting to know, that is my story so far. From brothel worker to top escort to escort advisor and mentor. I hope to help people all over the world to learn from my mistakes and travel the road of an escort far more smoothly and successfully. As always, I can be contacted on isabel@foxgirls.com.au. If you are an escort in Sydney, Australia, you may have the opportunity to work with me personally. And if you are anywhere else in the world, I would love to hear from you, so feel free to contact me. And bye for now.